Me and Eddie really did not get along.
In real life?
In real life.
I did not know this.
Yeah. Like
okay.
we didn't get. But every single week before taping, we'd come together. We'd put our hands together. We'd bow and we'd pray before we go out there.
Two warriors who couldn't stand each other, praying together before battle. Every week for 4 years, Malcolm Jamal Warner and Eddie Griffin put aside their personal differences to fight a war most people didn't even know was happening. There is a systematic effort to destroy every black male entertainer's image. They want us all to have an actress by our name. For over a decade, Eddie Griffin has been screaming about Hollywood's war against black men who refuse to submit. Whatever happened to integrity, man? How many brothers got aware? Eddie exposed the systematic emasculation program. But nothing he predicted could have prepared him for what happened to his former co-star on July 20th, 2025. R.I.P. Malcolm Jamal. Actor Malcolm Jamal Warner, widely known for starring in the hit TV sitcom The Cosby Show, has died. When Eddie Griffin heard his old co-star was dead, he didn't post some generic R.I.P. message. He dropped a bombshell on Instagram that exposed exactly what killed Malcolm Jamal Warner. What killed Malcolm Jamal? The actor Malcolm Jamal Warner, widely known for starring in the hit TV sitcom The Cosby Show, has died. He wrote, "My heart is heavy today for what the world lost as a father, a son, a poet, a musician, an actor, a teacher, a writer, a director, a friend, a warrior that I had the pleasure of going to war with against the Hollywood machine, and sometimes with each other because that's what brothers do. But the love was and is always there." Eddie didn't say they worked in Hollywood. He said they went to war against it. That's not the language you use for show business disputes. That's military terminology. That's what you say when someone dies fighting an enemy. The war started during Malcolm and Eddie. Both men thought they were getting a platform to create positive black entertainment. Instead, they walked into a battlefield where every script was a fight. Every episode was resistance against a system designed to make them perform like trained monkeys. So for me, it was like going from a top university to junior college, because I'm saying, look, we can actually be funny without doing stereotypical stuff. And no one was really interested in that route. They're like, we didn't bring you over here for that. This is what we do. Malcolm wasn't describing creative differences. He was describing psychological warfare. They took America's favorite TV son and tried to force him to degrade himself for their entertainment. When he refused, the machine turned against him. Even though we were at odds, what we both understood is we get to 100 episodes, we're going to have a sweetation deal. Ultimately, they cut us at 88 because they were tired. They were tired of me fighting with the writers. And then they were tired of Eddie's shenanigans. 88 episodes, just 12 away from generational wealth through syndication. They killed the show because Malcolm and Eddie wouldn't stay in their place. The machine doesn't just control your image. It controls your money, your future, your ability to build independent wealth. That's when both men learned the rules of engagement. You can fight, but you can't win. You can resist, but there's always a bigger weapon they can deploy. And if you become too dangerous, if you start exposing too much truth, the machine has a final solution. Eddie's Hollywood prophecy. Griffin has been screaming about Hollywood's systematic destruction of black men for over a decade. His comedy specials weren't just jokes. They were intelligence reports from inside the war zone. This was Eddie exposing the systematic emasculation of black men in Hollywood. Every major black male star has worn a dress on screen. It's not coincidence, it's conditioning. Break down their masculinity. Make them perform degradation. Then reward them with money and fame. But Eddie's most chilling prediction came when he talked about Bill Cosby. Years before the allegations went mainstream, Eddie was warning that no black entertainer gets to leave Hollywood with their dignity intact. Eddie wasn't making predictions. He was reading the playbook. Michael Jackson, Bill Cosby, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. Every black man who achieved independent power and influence got hit with career-destroying scandals. The timing is never accidental. Why they came after Malcolm. Reason number one, why they came after Bill C. Black man does something. It says John Jones, blacklist said black, black, black. Now, if a white man does it, it isn't White Man Jones. It's just a man. Eddie was exposing the media manipulation that creates different rules for black and white celebrities. When white stars face scandals, they're individuals. When black stars face the same issues, they become proof of racial stereotypes. This psychological warfare was designed to keep black entertainers compliant through fear. But Malcolm Jamal Warner stopped being afraid, and that's when the machine moved to its final phase. Something changed in Malcolm Jamal Warner. During his final year, the man who had carefully navigated Hollywood politics for decades started speaking truth to power with reckless abandon. His Instagram became a weapon of war against the psychological programming Eddie had been exposing. I am tired of running for shade. And aren't you tired of being hustled and played? And aren't we all tired of crying about how hard it is to be black in America? Even if it looks like we got it made? This wasn't poetry. This was Malcolm directly calling out the systematic programming of black Americans. The music we're programmed to celebrate. He was exposing how the entertainment industry deliberately promotes degrading content to condition black audiences, traits placed upon them by their captors. He was naming the puppet masters who control the narrative. The timing couldn't have been worse for Hollywood, with Diddy facing federal charges, with Jeffrey Epstein connections finally being exposed, with systematic corruption being investigated at the highest levels. Malcolm Jamal Warner was positioning himself as a credible witness to decades of psychological warfare. His final video shows a man who knew he was living on borrowed time. You know what? Life is out here lifing, right? For me and for everybody else. But just wanted to remind you, as I remind myself, that no matter what's going on, there's always a reason to smile. Malcolm was acknowledging that forces beyond his control were determining his fate. The forced positivity, the desperate attempt to find reasons to smile, the promise that I'll be back soon. This was a man saying goodbye without being able to say goodbye. 3 days later, he was dead in the waters of Costa Rica, officially ruled an accidental drowning. No witnesses, no foul play, just another tragic loss that permanently silenced a truth teller who had become too dangerous to the machine. Eddie's warning. Eddie Griffin's warning about black entertainers never leaving the business clean wasn't theoretical. He was documenting a pattern that would eventually consume his friend Malcolm Jamal Warner. Eddie wasn't just defending Bill Cosby. He was exposing the systematic timing and methodology behind character assassination campaigns targeting powerful black men in entertainment. In this explosive interview, Eddie methodically deconstructed the Cosby allegations, pointing out how they followed a predictable pattern designed to maximize psychological and financial damage. Eddie highlighted the suspicious timing, how decades-old accusations surfaced precisely when Cosby was at his peak influence, attempted by NBC and regain control over his creative legacy. He questioned the logic behind the accuser's stories, asking why women would voluntarily enter private hotel rooms with a married man whose family-focused public image was internationally known, then wait 30 years to report alleged assaults. But Eddie's real bombshell was connecting this to a broader systematic effort. He wasn't focused on Cosby's guilt or innocence. He was documenting how the entertainment machine deploys coordinated media campaigns to destroy black entertainers who become too independent, too wealthy, or too vocal about racial injustice. The 30-year delay wasn't accidental. It ensured the allegations would surface past the statute of limitations, making them impossible to prove or disprove legally while maximizing reputational damage. The pattern is always the same. Michael Jackson died while planning the comeback that would have given him unprecedented control over his music and legacy. Prince died just as he was fighting to regain ownership of his masters. Whitney Houston died at the height of renewed public interest in her. Story of industry abuse. And now Malcolm Jamal Warner, a figure so beloved he was immune to typical character assassination, dies in a Costa Rica drowning accident just as he was becoming most vocal about systematic psychological warfare against black Americans. But Eddie saw this coming. He's been documenting this pattern for years, warning that the machine always has a final solution when reputation destruction fails. You're not going to die clean. I mean, everything that Bill Cosby has built up, the decades of work that he stood behind, the man has, single-handedly, sent a bunch of brothers and sisters to college. Malcolm Jamal Warner was building something too dangerous to ignore. His podcast, Not All Hood, challenged every stereotype the industry profits from. His Instagram poetry exposed the psychological programming Eddie had been warning about. His interviews connected entertainment industry racism to broader patterns of systematic oppression. Most dangerously, he was doing it with the credibility of Theo Huxtable. You can't destroy America's favorite TV son with typical smear campaigns. You can't isolate someone with his resume and connections. When character assassination won't work, when professional blacklisting fails, the machine moves to its final phase. 3. Eddie's tribute. Days after Malcolm Jamal Warner's body was pulled from Costa Rican waters, Eddie Griffin posted a tribute that confirmed every conspiracy theorist's worst fears. But it wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. My heart is heavy today for what the world lost as a father, a son, a poet, a musician, an actor, a teacher, a writer, a director, a friend, a warrior that I had the pleasure of going to war with against the Hollywood machine, and sometimes with each other because that's what brothers do. But the love was and is always there. Every word was military terminology. Malcolm was an entertainer. He was a warrior. They didn't work together. They went to war. Hollywood wasn't their workplace. It was a Hollywood machine. The same term activists use for systematic oppression. This wasn't grief. This was confirmation. Eddie was telling everyone who understands the code that Malcolm died fighting the same battle Eddie had been documenting for decades. The timing of Eddie's response was crucial. Most celebrity deaths get generic condolences that take hours or days to craft with publicists. Eddie's tribute went up immediately, raw and unfiltered, like someone who had been expecting this call for years. Malcolm had stopped picking his battles strategically. In his final months, he was fighting on all fronts, challenging systematic programming through his podcast, exposing psychological warfare through his Instagram poetry, connecting entertainment industry corruption to broader patterns of racial oppression. An artist, to be a conscious artist of color, you're constantly having to pick your battles, and, at some point you have to, really decide what your boundaries are. What are the things that you undoubtedly stand for? Malcolm had crossed a line from managed resistance to dangerous truth-telling. And Eddie Griffin's tribute confirmed that the machine responded exactly as Eddie had predicted for years. Michelle Thomas. To understand Malcolm Jamal Warner's final transformation, you need to know about Michelle Thomas, the woman whose death in 1998 shaped every decision he made for the next 27 years. Michelle wasn't just another Hollywood romance. She was Malcolm's co-star, his moral anchor, and ultimately his guide from beyond the grave. Michelle Thomas played Justine Phillips on The Cosby Show, Theo's sweet, intelligent girlfriend who represented everything positive about young black love on television. But behind the cameras, Michelle and Malcolm's real-life relationship became something deeper and more transformative than anything their characters experienced on screen. The highest choice. Michelle Thomas was born in Boston to Caribbean immigrant parents who instilled in her an unshakable moral foundation. She entered Hollywood with her values intact and refused to let the industry corrupt her spirit. While other young actresses were being pressured into degrading roles or exploitive situations, Michelle maintained her dignity. She chose projects carefully, spoke thoughtfully about representation, and never compromised her principles for fame or money. Malcolm fell in love not just with Michelle's beauty, but with her integrity. In an industry designed to break down young black talent, Michelle represented something rare, someone who could navigate Hollywood without losing herself. Their 5-year relationship became Malcolm's education in maintaining authenticity while building a career. When cancer struck Michelle at just 28 years old, Malcolm watched the love of his life fight with the same moral clarity she had brought to everything else. Even facing death, Michelle made what she called the highest choice, refusing to let fear or bitterness consume her final months. Malcolm was there when she took her last breath. Michelle's mother revealed that he literally climbed into the hospital bed to hold Michelle as she died. This wasn't celebrity grief. This was a man losing the person who had kept his soul intact in an industry designed to destroy it. For 27 years after Michelle's death, Malcolm used a memory as his moral GPS. Every career decision, every public statement, Every moment of temptation was filtered through one question. What would Michelle have done? This wasn't just romantic nostalgia. It was a survival strategy in an industry that systematically corrupts black talent. But something changed in Malcolm's final year. The man who had spent decades carefully balancing Michelle's moral guidance with Hollywood pragmatism suddenly stopped being diplomatic. His final Instagram post about being tired of running for shade represented Malcolm finally embracing the kind of uncompromising truth-telling that Michelle would have been proudest of. He stopped managing his resistance and started speaking with the moral clarity that had made Michelle Thomas too pure for Hollywood to corrupt, and ultimately too dangerous for the machine to let him live. He had made the highest choice Michelle would have been proud of, speaking truth regardless of consequences. But Eddie Griffin knew the price of that choice. His tribute wasn't just mourning a friend. It was documenting the execution of a warrior who refused to surrender in a war most people don't know exists. The conspiracy theorists who immediately questioned Malcolm's drowning aren't paranoid. They're pattern recognition experts who understand that in an industry where Diddy faces federal charges for decades of systematic abuse, where Jeffrey Epstein connections run deep through entertainment circles, where corruption is finally being exposed at the highest levels, the death of a credible witness is never really accidental. Malcolm Jamal Warner didn't die in a swimming accident. He was eliminated because he had become too dangerous to the machine he and Eddie had been fighting their entire careers. His final Instagram poetry about psychological warfare, his podcast challenging racial stereotypes, his interviews connecting entertainment racism to broader systematic oppression, all of it threatened the narrative control that keeps the machine running. Eddie Griffin's immediate, uncompromising tribute serves as both obituary and battle cry. By calling Malcolm a warrior who died fighting the Hollywood machine, he was confirming what many suspected, but few dared say. The war is real, the casualties are mounting, and the machine will eliminate anyone who threatens its control over black minds and black narratives. In the end, Malcolm Jamal Warner's death proves Eddie Griffin's most chilling prediction. In Hollywood's systematic war against conscious black entertainers, nobody leaves this business clean, and the truth-tellers who refuse to stay silent don't get to leave at all. The machine claimed another warrior. But Eddie's confirmation ensures that Malcolm's death won't be forgotten or dismissed as another tragic accident. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.